Hello and welcome to the SEN YouTube channel. My name is Nic Negrepontis from the SEN digital team. We're the behind the scenes team that look after this YouTube page, and it's, we're going to have some fun with it over the Christmas period. I'm with Jack Makeham.
How you going?
And Sebastian Mottram.
Thanks for having me, Bon.
You can call him Smot. You can call him Jack. I'm Nick. And we're going to be ranking all 18 AFL coaches in terms of how much pressure they are under next year. Obviously, no one wants coaches to be sacked. No one wants anyone to be sacked. But basically what we're going to do here is we're going to go through all 18 teams and their coaches, their contract situations, and what that means going forward. So, Jack, you're a tier list master today. You've got the laptop in front of you.
I have full control. This could go anywhere.
But we're going to go on a majority rule system. So, if Smot and I disagree, Jack might have the deciding vote. We'll change the order of who goes first and who has the deciding vote as we go along. So, we're going to start with maybe the most interesting one on this list. Luke Beveridge.
Luke Beveridge. Very much under fire. There's a lot of criticism coming his way over the off-season.
Particularly on the SEN YouTube account.
I mean, maybe. It could be from us. But for me, he's probably the coach that's on the hottest seat coming into this season. The talent that they have on that list, there's some big names on there. Marcus Bontempelli, Tom Liberatore, Jamari Hagan, players like that who should be stars in this league and are stars in this league. But they consistently underperform. They've been to a couple grand finals. What are they going to do this year? If they can't reach it, who knows?
Yeah, so I'm with you, Jack. So Bevo's clearly hot seat, but the thing I find fascinating is that he's just got such a wide spectrum. I don't think any of us would be surprised if the Bulldogs play finals, make a grand final, win a premiership, if you look at the list, like you were saying. But in the same vein, I don't think any of us would be surprised if the Dogs start 2-7 and Bevo's gone by round 10.
It's got a bit of Malthouse Carlton ending about it, I reckon. It could either be divorced by round 10, as you said, or they could make a grand final. But do we overrate the Bulldogs list?
Probably.
I get the feeling that they have a lot of top end players and a lot of battlers and not a lot in between.
It comes down to, we see them a lot when it comes to the end of year awards. There's always Bulldogs representation, and they've got these big figures. Even though Bailey Smith's not playing, he's one of these big figures that we always see. Jamara, we always see. Aaron Norton, probably, for me, very overrated, but we always see him around. So we see these players, we think they're good. They probably are a bit overrated. But regardless, they're still on the hot seat.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jack. It's a talented list, but there is a little bit of a drop off towards the bottom. But nevertheless, they are taken.
How long is Beveridge contracted to?
Bevo's contracted to the end of 2025, so 2 more years. The Dogs moved at the start of last year to re-sign him.
A move that's been pretty widely criticised, especially by our man Kane.
Was criticised at the time, and it's starting to ring true. But like I said, big wide spectrum, big wide campus for what Bevo can do next year, clearly in the hot seat.
So he needs a big 2024, but is he on the hot seat? Are we all in agreement? Not on the hot seat?
Definitely the hot seat.
All right, we are unanimous on that one. Jack, what's next?
We're going to move over to Brad Scott over the Dons.
Yeah, so I'll take Brad Scott to start. I think he's completely safe. I reckon this club is going to be built around him for as long as he wants, really. So he's signed on to the end of 2026. 4-year deal when he signed. I think he's got the full support of Barham. He's got the full support of Craig Vozzo, the new CEO. His canvas, really.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. They're smart. He's contracted for quite a long time until the end of 2026, I believe. He's not going to be going anywhere, regardless of how well they perform this year, how disappointed they are.
It's a boring start, but yeah, I think we're all in agreement so far. Brad Scott, he basically runs the Bombers. If you listen to any interviews with Essendon's Chiefs, they pretty much just say, yeah, Brad makes every decision. So
he can do what he wants.
Fair enough too. He's earned that position as well. His tenure at North, his tenure at the AFL House. Yep. I think he's one of the more revered figures in footy and deserves to.
Scenario, Essendon finish bottom 4 next year. Does Brad Scott pay the price or does someone else pay the price? Because Dodoro is gone. The scapegoat is gone.
I think Brad Scott survives well. I think there's the. I would almost go as far to say that nothing that could happen in 2024 could see Brad Scott depart the Bombers. So fully safe. Couldn't be safer.
And we will make a TikTok of that if it does happen. So for now, I agree. Fully safe.
Fully safe. Let's move on to his brother, old Chris, and we're going to go straight back to Smot, the Cats man himself.
Yeah. So Chris is contracted to 2026 and. He's an interesting one because he's a bit in the same vein as Bevo that Cats could, we were reigning or premiers in 2022, so they could go straight back up, and they're also tipped to fall off a cliff, Jack. So they could go straight back down. So big wide canvas about what happens there. But he's got the right to choose how he departs this club, given
That's
what
the
he's
thing.
done. And it's another interesting one in the fact that if he wins another flag this year, if he takes Geelong back up to the top, he's won 3 flags. He's suddenly in the conversation as one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Classic Geelong angle from you, Sebastian.
But again, if he's 2-9 at round 10, he might as well just say, I've had enough. I can't, to use it Damien Hardwick line, I can't cook the sausages any other
That's
ways.
it. This has Damien Hardwick vibes.
Written all over
I'm
it.
with you.
Chris Scott will not be sacked by Geelong, but I reckon there's at least a 20%. There are scenarios next year where he is no longer Geelong coach,
Can see that.
and he, makes his own choice. So I reckon, if we're categorizing this, he's probably safe.
Probably safe. The only way he wouldn't be safe is if he's not safe from himself.
Yeah, like
Happy-
Damien Hardwick coming into this year was probably safe. Premiership coach, only thing that could go wrong was team falling off a cliff, which it kind of did. You could see that happening with Geelong next year. I know you probably can't.
I'll say if things go poorly, Chris Scott could probably be gone. I think that's my category. I've got him.
I've got him in probably safe.
I'm going to stick with probably safe. I can see where you're coming from, but there's almost no world where things go that poorly for me.
That works for me too.
Clarko, another figure, another staple of the coaching scene. Who knows what is going to go on with him, but
Well-
he's contracted for a very long time.
Now that the Hawthorn investigation is in the back seat, he is as safe as any coach in the AFL.
Exactly.
There is no way that North Melbourne move on from their prodigal, all-time, like they held parties in the streets when they signed him. There is not a chance in the world that they sack him.
Yeah, it is in the same vein as Scott though. Clarko's comments towards the end of last year seemed to suggest, I think it was about George Warlock, that he almost didn't come back. Or he was thinking about not coming back, at least, which is at not odds with North's narrative at the time. But remember, comments from Clarko towards the end of the season suggested that watching George Wardlaw wants to make him come back. So clearly he's not, well, not clearly, but to me, he doesn't feel like he's that invested in the club, or he publicly, at least his narrative is, and he's that invested. So again, it wouldn't be surprised to see Clarko in round 15 say, I've lost my love of the game. I'm walking away. That's just a
Interesting.
headline we could see in the future.
So you reckon there's a world where Alastair Clarkson is not North Melbourne coach in 2025?
Yes.
Jack, what do you reckon?
I can see that world. I don't see it as a likely world.
No, that's it. I'm not tipping to say that it happens. I could just see a headline that if you wake up from a coma in 8 months' time, I could see that as a headline.
The point you've made is give me the inclination to drop him down to probably safe, because I can see a world where he does what we're tipping Chris Scott could possibly do as well, follow the dimmer route and just go, yeah, I'm done actually.
Alastair Clarkson is fully safe. So like in terms of North Melbourne will not sack him, and he will not leave unless he wants to. So it is the same as Chris Scott in that regard. Let's say North loses 17 of their first 20 games. Does Clarko go, I'm out of energy, I don't have the juice to rebuild this club? That is the only thought, but they've put so much money into him. Then they stood by him through some pretty tough times this year.
Well, like you said, North's not going to sack him. So it's completely in Clarko's hands. And
Yeah.
how he want to rank that, I guess, is subjective. But
I'm saying
probably
fully safe.
I'll be fully safe as well.
Fully safe, let's move him back up. We should have made a category for could just say goodbye.
It chooses to leave,
Fair enough.
which is weird because that's not a thing coaches usually do.
but we're seeing it a lot.
Dimmer has set the precedent.
Yeah.
Speaking of the precedent, Dimmer, the man himself, for me, potentially the safest man in the entire competition.
Yeah, this is a 12-second conversation. Tim is the safest man in the club builds around him. Same mold as Brad Scott.
I'm trying to think of someone in the AFL who has a safer job than Damien Hardwick. Anybody.
Can't be done. Doesn't exist.
I'm drawing a
Nic
blank.
Dacos? Nic Dacos would have a safer job.
Yeah, except Nic Dacos can get injured. Tim is pretty safe off the field.
True.
But no, again, he's not going anywhere. That club will build around him, and it's a great appointment for the Suns.
That club would trade anybody on their list before they get rid of Damien Hardwick.
You'd trade a fair bit. Same as Dimmer, same as Chris Scott. I think these coaches that have won premierships are invaluable.
Interesting.
There's not many to go around.
I'm still wondering if Dimmer is washed. I'll say that now. I honestly reckon there is more worlds where Gold Coast missed the 8 and his coaching isn't quite up to par, and the pressure comes. He's not going anywhere, but I think it's an interesting watch next year.
It's an interesting one, Pont. Big watch.
Big watch. We're going to stay up north, staying in Queensland. We're going to go to Chris Fagan.
I'll start on this one, Pont. So Fags is end of 2025, and I've got him in the category of if things go poorly, and I'll explain that now. So clearly that he's been there since 2016, so he's been there a fair time, and he's probably been there longer than the average coach now, and he still hasn't won a flag. So my thinking is that, again, if he gets to a point where Lions are 5-7, something like that, clearly a much more talented team than that. Is there a scenario where Chris Fagan says, I can't do anything more for this group? I can't do anything more. The same thing as Damien Hardwick, and he walks away. I think if things go poorly, I can see Fagan saying that's enough. I've had, 8-9 years at the Lions. Sorry, 7-8 years at the Lions. That's it.
I'm disappointed you've gone the middle one spot because I've got him in needs a big 2024.
Wow. Interesting.
Brisbane.
I thought you were going to go the other way there.
Brisbane have had the best list in the competition for 2 years now. They had the easiest path to win a premiership of any team in AFL history in 2020. They have not done it.
But again, it's only a bounce of a ball that changes the whole narrative.
Of course, but the ball did bounce the other way.
Yeah.
So we can only go with the narrative that we are provided. To me, if Brisbane finish 8th or if Brisbane finish 10th, you'll start hearing he's a bit older. Has he got the most out of this list?
That's the one to watch.
Is there anything else that they can do?
But again, that's not to say that will happen.
No, I'm not saying that will happen. I still think he needs a big 2024. I think there are more scenarios where Chris Fagan and the Lions move on than not at the end of next year.
Out of contract at the end of 2025?
Yep, which always means you want to get the contract done in the year before.
Precisely. You want to avoid that kind of Ken Hinkley scenario that we saw all through this year. Pont, I'm with you. I think he needs a big 2024. I think that Brisbane have... Correct. They've got the best list in the competition. They've got stars all throughout their entire list, and they've got new ones coming. We've got Will Ashcroft. We've got the younger Levi Ashcroft, who sounds like he's better somehow, which is ridiculous. That list that he's working with is easily the most prevalent with star power in the entire competition, and he still hasn't quite managed to get it done. They're playing at the Gabba 9 times out of 10. As soon as they come to the G, they've just got to figure something out. I think he needs a big 2024. I think he needs another grand final appearance.
Yep.
If he's not on track for that, I could see him going.
To me, they're premiership favourites next year. What do you reckon?
100%. I agree.
Yep, alongside Melbourne.
Melbourne, not Collingwood?
I just think it's so hard to go back to back in this kind of era.
That's a fair point.
The way we're playing footy now, how competitive it is. And Collingwood also lose Graham Wright, which is a big factor that we'll get to later on.
So, the most interesting coach on this list, I think, is coming up next.
Simon Goodwin. Smott's premiership favourites, apparently. Melbourne.
Equal premiership favourites. Goodies to 2026. They moved early to re-sign him amid all that speculation surrounding Goodwin, all the reports surrounding Goodwin out of the Herald Sun. I'm interested to see how Goody goes without Adem Yze, who's now joined Richmond. So Yze was pinned as Melbourne's game day coach.
That's a really good point.
Up in the box. So I think when you combine that, Goody's still got a court case going on, and he's also got to deal with multiple off-field issues like Clayton Oliver plays at Melbourne is going to be a huge headline all throughout 2024, or at least early in 2024. So I think there's a lot of factors against Melbourne. That being said, I still think they're my equal premiership favourites around the mark, given their list, and I have Goody as probably safe.
Yeah, probably safe doesn't quite cut it for me, I think. I think he's one category below it. I think there are a lot of scenarios, both on-field and off-field, that could see Simon Goodwin move on as Melbourne coach, but that contract that they did just move probably puts him closer to probably safe because they did just extend him. But it's been 2 years now. The D's have had a lot of issues, as you just outlined. Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the middle category. What do you reckon, Jack?
I think I'm putting him further down. I'm not keeping him probably safe at all.
Oh, no.
I have a lot of questions about the D's this season. There's a lot of talent on their list, right? But straight sets, so time and time again, there's constant controversy off-field with them, with everything that's going on. Let's not get into the details of it. But there's something about Melbourne that just screams explosion. I see a world where this club doesn't even make finals because something goes wrong. It's a bold call.
Yeah, even on that though, even if they don't make finals, let's not forget that Simon Goodwin is a Melbourne hero. He broke the premiership drought. This man dragged them, well, not solely him, but taking over from Paul Roos, he dragged them out of obscurity and brought this team back to a grand final, back to the premiership. Like this, he will forever be remembered as one of Melbourne's famous names, my favourite coaches, and it'll take a lot to see him gone at the end of 2024.
That is a great point. Even in this doomsday scenario that I'm talking about, he is probably safe. it would take a disaster of epic proportions to see him move away from that club.
How many years does a premiership buy you?
Buys you a long time.
Because Luke Beveridge,
Long time in football.
it's 2024. That'll be at least 8 years and a new contract last year. I reckon the premiership bought him that contract.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think the premiership bought Bevo 7-8 years, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm saying Goodwin is in the middle tier. You're saying probably safe, Smot?
I've got him as probably safe.
I think I've been talked up to probably safe, even in this disaster, I think he's probably safe. And so let's go move on to...
Sorry, so are we 100% sure on probably safe here? Because I've got the middle category. You had the category below that. And you've been talked up 2 categories
I've been talked up twice.
I've talked up Jack.
I
Probably safe.
underestimated in my own notes how much of a Melbourne hero that he actually is. He is an icon to that football club.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to be outvoted.
He is pivotal. But if we had a little bit there, just kind of sitting in the middle, probably safe. But if things go poorly, who knows? Anyway, let's move on to Port Adelaide with Ken Hinkley. Pont, start us off.
He is on the hot seat. They just re-signed him, and yet he is on the hot seat, which to me says that they made the wrong decision.
100% yes.
You can't re-sign a coach in August based on 6 months of pressure and then go out in straight sets and not then be immediately on the hot seat.
Yeah, well, this is getting into different territories here, but I think you can't not re-sign a coach that's going into a final series and have him as the headline when Port Adelaide's got his best shot to win a flag in some years. I think that would have been a mistake. But back to Ken, in the same realm, I can't think of a coach that just signed a contract extension that's ever been under more pressure. 4-5 months after it? It seems ridiculous that we're already talking about this, but we are. And we know the fan sentiment at Port Adelaide is one that doesn't really support Hinkley, or unless there's a very, very, very loud minority in that sense. So I'm with you. Well, actually, I've got him as needing a big 2024.
Okay. So I can think of 3 coaches, and they all made a grand final after that. Damien Hardwick, Nathan Buckley, and Mark Thompson, who were all re-signed in pretty controversial fashion, stuck around, and they all either made a grand final or won one. Do any of us see Port Adelaide doing that next year?
I don't see Ken Hinkley being in the same mould as any of those names. I don't see Port Adelaide doing that. Again, I'm just going to keep firing off bold takes because apparently that's what I'm doing now. I can see them falling off entirely out of the top 8.
Have you got anyone in your top 8 next year?
Gold Coast, and that's about it. Damien Hardwick all the way, baby. I can see them. I don't buy the strength of their list in anywhere aside from their midfield, and I don't think Ken Hinkley is particularly adept at harnessing what he's got with those spare parts. Last season, his success was built almost entirely off a win streak that, while impressive, a lot of it came down to they were just getting the right bounce of the ball. They had a lot of close game success, and I don't see that being replicated. And I think if they miss finals, he's out.
Yeah, without delving too much into on-field, I think the main concern on Port last year was their backline, and it was flooded with injuries. All those players come back, they get Radigalia in the door, they get Brandon Zerk-Thatcher in the door. Not A-grade players, but players that can play a role.
Not B-grade players. Not C-grade players. Maybe C- grade players.
Must be nice.
Can be important players for Port Adelaide next year, and I can see Ken Hinkley taking Port Adelaide to the grand final.
So what category are we going? I said hot seat.
I want hot seat. Smot.
If I'm outvoted, I'm outvoted.
What category would you have had him in?
I've got him in needs a big 2024, but it's a very fine margin.
All right, well, I think the majority says hot seat.
I think we're going to go hot seat, but I'll put him above Bevo.
Yes, Bevo is hotter.
Bevo is the hottest seat that is
in
ever
more
hot
ways than
seated.
one.
Yep.
I've just broken Jack there. Anyway, next up is GWS coach Adem Kingsley, who is maybe the safest coach in the AFL outside of Damien Hardwick, who has just resigned.
Yeah, so I'll take Kingsley. Fully safe, 2025. He's interesting yarn written by Andrew Sleverson on sen.com.au last week that Kingsley mirrors that of Craig McRae in his first season. So Kingsley takes the Giants from 16th to 7th and loses the prelim final by 1 point. McRae takes the Pies from 17th to 4th and loses the preliminary final by 1 point. There's an interesting narrative there to be followed next year, depending on what the Giants can do. I wouldn't count against them, and I think Kingsley's as safe as they get.
Yeah, interesting there. It's hard when you take a team who finished bottom 4 under a long-term coach and take them 1 point short of a grand final. I don't think it matters what happens next year. There's not going to be enough media pressure built up on GWS anyway to sack Adem Kingsley, even if they finish last. So I think he's safe in pretty much all scenarios.
When it comes to smaller clubs like this, it takes an extreme amount of media pressure, an extended period of losing. Like, look at what happened with Gold Coast. It took ages for Stuart Dew to get anywhere near to getting the boot, and that was after they never had a successful season in their entire history. So Adem Kingsley can, from here on out, he can coach for as long as he wants at GWS. And he's out of contract at the end of 2025, so we'll probably see some kind of contract extension coming next season pretty soon.
Just a quick one to jump in on there, Jack. I find it interesting how the narratives change from Lyon Cameron to Adem Kingsley. So being in the media, we love this media sort of nerdy stuff. But Lyon Cameron had the keys to the Lamborghini and never really learned how to drive. The Giants list hasn't changed overly much since Kingsley took over. But now that Kingsley doesn't have that same sort of pressure on him at all. Like Lyon Cameron really was grilled for not being able to maximise his list. Have you got any thoughts on that, Nick?
I think that's because Adem Kingsley drove the Ferrari, as Hutchie pointed it out. I think he took the keys, he got in the car, and he actually drove it.
Cameron took them to a grand final as well.
He did. He
in
absolutely
fact, he
did.
even beat Collingwood in a preliminary
He
final.
absolutely did. And I think some of the criticism of Lyon Cameron was unfair.
Yep.
But what Adem Kingsley did was he took a team that had almost no ability to move the football for 2 years and turned them into the most dynamic offense in the AFL.
Yep.
So I think that's, to me, why there's a bit different. He's also a first-year coach.
Yep.
No one expected anything of GWS
That's
last year.
He's under no pressure. So we've all got him in fully safe?
Yes.
Yep.
Fully safe.
Second safest coach in the entire competition for me.
Third safest, I reckon.
Third safest.
I reckon there's one that's above him.
You are 100% correct.
And he's coming up right now.
Here we go. We've got John Longmire right here. What do you reckon? Very safe? Very safe?
John Longmire.
There is no one safer, Smot. Outside of Damien Hardwick.
No one's safer, but in the sense he's also coached over 300 AFL games. How many professions can you stay in for more? I think he was appointed in early 2010. So how many professions can you stay willingly involved in for more than a decade?
You have to have a lot of passion for it.
A lot of passion for it. So I've got no qualms with what John Longmire's achieved as a coach. I think he's done incredible things for that football club. But again, the Swans are tipped to really improve next year with their trade period, going after Taylor Adams, Brodie Grundy, the improved development from their youngsters. If the Swans aren't going that well mid-season, do be a bit surprised, but don't be overly surprised if there's a shock press conference called mid-season, John Longmire saying, I've done all I can with this club.
You reckon he could do a dimmer?
I do, yeah. And I think the line is not as big for some of these people as we think. If a few results go their way, go against them, and he's not 100% committed to turning this club around, which I don't think anyone could blame him if he's not, I could see a world where he's not coaching the Swans in 2025. But that's not to hit out at his coaching credentials at all. I still think Sydney are right up there in the premiership market.
I'd see, in comparison to the other coaches that we might be expecting to pull a dimmer, I don't really see Longmire as one of them, considering how invested he is in that culture at the club. The infamous Bloods culture has been something massive that's part of the club for as soon as, well, obviously before his tenure, but he's embodied that spirit the entire time he's been there. And obviously from the outside looking in, it's a bit hard to tell. We don't particularly know what's going on in these guys' minds, but I would be stunned if Longmire decided to call it a day if they were going not so great, the Swans. And I don't particularly see a world where they don't end up going at least okay enough for him to stick around.
I've got one thought on the Swans. The best offensive mind in Australian football for the last 7 years has been Don Pike. He took Adelaide to a grand final. We know what happened after that. I think that was a little bit, more off-field than on-field. They had that Adelaide team in 2017 was extraordinary offensively. He comes to Sydney, takes a dour defensive team and turns them into one of the most interesting attacking teams in the league. He's now CEO of West Coast.
Big narrative to watch. Good call.
Can the Swans, without Don Pike, keep that? Because we know that when key assistant coaches leave, they take their IP with them. We've seen that, Nathan Buckley's last year, Justin Longmuir leaves for Fremantle, suddenly they lose their defensive identity. So this is what I'm really curious to see, Sydney minus Don Pike. Don Pike was also the natural successor if John Longmire wanted to move aside. So you could look at it both ways. I think he's fully safe.
I'm going to go with fully safe.
Happy with fully safe.
So we're going to move on to a man with a remarkably similar name, Justin Longmuir.
And a remarkably distinct situation to John Longmire.
100%.
I think he's on the hot seat.
You better believe he's on the hot seat. We're going to put him in the middle. We're going to put him to the left of Ken.
I think he's more hot than Ken and less hot than Beveridge, but he is out of contract next year, which I think is a big factor.
Yeah, I think that's right. On not as under pressure as Bevo, but certainly got a fair bit of heat on him. And the problem with Longmuir that I think we're not really talking about, the Dockers need a rebound, and they probably need to play finals if he's going to keep his job. Even though it seems like subtly the Dockers have suggested they cut back on their list too hard. But how do you play finals, Jack, when your list has got worse over the trade period? He's lost Liam Henry and he's lost Lockie Schultz. How does this team actually rebound and get better? I don't see whether...
I don't see it either.
I don't see it.
The expectations are high for this team, but I can't see a world where they actually live up to those expectations, especially when they've got such a baffling list construction. The whole toss-up between Luke Jackson and Sean Darcy, and they've just extended Sean Darcy. This is a huge problem for Justin Longmuir to solve, and I don't see a world where he does it. I think he's out.
I don't think they play finals next year, but I think they stick with him. So I'm not expecting... He's still on the hot seat. I think he's absolutely on the hot seat. But I think one thing to consider is Fremantle has one of, if not the youngest lists in the AFL. All of their key personnel are 25 and under. So this is a big decision to make. Do you stick with Longmuir, or do you reset and bring someone else in?
A question without notice for you. Do you know where they would go if they chose to bring someone else in?
Do they go for a big WA name? Do they bring Adam Simpson across?
Oh, no.
We haven't got to him yet, but I think there are scenarios where Fremantle goes to someone like a John Longmuir or a Chris Scott. Sorry, John Longmire or a Chris Scott and says, we have a really young list and we would really like you to coach it. Here is all of Western Australia's resources.
Well,
please come coach us.
Whatever it is, I think it's fair to say that 2024 defines Justin Longmuir's coaching credentials.
Yep.
I think that's pretty fair.
Yep, on the hot seat.
And we're going to move on to a man whose coaching credentials were defined in 2023, Craig McRae. Smart, start us off.
15-second conversation. Doesn't need anything else. Fully safe.
Bang.
Yeah, I forgot him when I was talking about Adam Kingsley being the second safest coach in the league. Craig McRae, there is no one safer.
There is no one safer.
He's ahead of Dimmer, I reckon.
I'm trying to move him over.
The only thing I do want to say on that, actually, I shouldn't have said the 15-second comment. Graham Wright, we know, has been an esteemed footy operator for a long time. The amazing things at Hawthorn now. He's gone to Collingwood and done the same thing. Reshaped the whole place. He's on leave from March to September next year.
Seems important.
Unclear whether he comes back for finals, and also unclear how much influence he'll have over Collingwood while overseas. Just one to watch. Just one to watch for me, Jack and Nick, how Collingwood go without Graham Wright.
Fair enough, but I think we've all got him fully safe.
Yep.
Easy. Super safe. Super safe. Sam Mitchell. Hawthorn.
Fully safe.
Fully safe.
Fully safe. Can do what he wants with the club. He runs that place now. He can choose whatever happens.
I think I know Jeff Kennett's no longer there, and it's a completely different board. But the egos who sacked Alastair Clarkson, let's not beat around the bush. They sacked Alastair Clarkson with a year to run on his contract, brought in Sam Mitchell, got rid of the handover plan, went straight to Sam Mitchell. If they were to sack Sam Mitchell within 2 years of doing that, I think,
outrageous.
I mean, I know they've already left the club, but I don't think the incumbents could do that either. I also think Hawthorn will be one of the most improved clubs next year.
Yeah, the only thing to add quickly is that you can't finish bottom 6 for 3 years running with no ramifications. So I do think Hawthorn will improve, but if they don't, I'd watch for some sort of narrative to start building.
What category do you have him in?
I've got Mitchell as probably safe.
I've got him as fully safe.
Yeah, I've got him as fully safe. Only he's got one more year. He's got one more year where he can do anything without reproach, I think.
Yep.
Because of the proximity to the Clarko sack.
I'm completely fine with fully safe.
Yeah, I don't reckon there's any danger with him. We're going to move on to Adelaide, Matthew Nicks.
Now, this one's interesting because he is the only coach in the AFL, I believe, who is out of contract next year other than Justin Longmuir. I think it is just those two.
And I believe Michael Voss.
And Michael Voss, yeah, that's a fair point. We'll get to him. He's his own kettle of fish. But Matthew Nicks is an interesting one because the Crows have already come out and said they're not going to be in a rush to re-sign him. They're not going to go down the same path Port Adelaide did in terms of having a public narrative. When they're ready, they will make the decision. For me, if I'm Adelaide, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to the end of the year and I'm making a call based on what they do this year. They should have made finals last year. They missed out on an umpire error. Sure, they've got to actually do it this year, though.
Yeah, I agree. Like that's one of the most underrated things, I think, in the football landscape. It's time to actually do it. When it's time to do it, who can actually do it? And we do need to see that from Matthew Nic. So I've got him as probably safe, and I think David King's been hot on it all throughout the year. These rebuild coaches don't survive. So if he does, it's a massive credit to Matthew Nic, but still to be seen.
I am 100% in agreement there. We've just got to let it play out over at Adelaide. He's a good coach. We've just got to see if we can actually take that crew to the next level.
That's it.
I've got him one below. I've got him in if things go poorly. Because let's say Adelaide finish 16th. They go backwards. Out of contract coach. I don't think an out of contract coach can be probably safe unless they are like literally Alastair Clarkson.
I think that's a fair point.
That's a fair point, but I think it's pretty stiff on Matthew Nic as well.
It would be, but if they finish 17th next year.
I think ideally Matthew Nic is contracted till the end of 2025. If you're Adelaide right now, you'd rather Matthew Nic be contracted to the end of 2025.
But
you can't re-sign a coach for 1 year, so
you can't.
They don't want to be making that decision right now. The Adelaide front office is probably not overly happy with their entire setup with his contract at the moment, but they've got to figure it out. It's what they do.
Have I convinced either of you?
You have convinced me.
Okay.
Smithers?
I'd still have him as probably safe.
Well, 2-1. Sorry.
Nice.
If things go poorly.
We needed someone in that category.
It was looking empty. He was getting lonely. So let's go to Ross Lyon, St Kilda.
Same thing as a few other coaches we mentioned today. Blank canvas at the Saints to do what he wants. He's contracted 2026. I've got reservations about how the Saints will go. That being said, but I think even if the Saints finish 15th, 16th, 17th, God forbid anything like that, I think Ross is still the man in charge and he'll be the one that calls the shots on how to fix it. So fully safe for mine.
I'm with you. Fully safe. I think they love him over at St Kilda. He can do no wrong in their eyes. I don't think there's going to be any problems with him. Even if St Kilda don't go too well, he'll be fine. He'll be there for at least another couple of years. I can't see a world where he's out anytime soon.
Agree. They just brought him in. They sacked Brett Radden out of nowhere after just re-signing him to bring Ross in. Even if St Kilda wins the wooden spoon next year, Ross Lyon will remain coach of the Saints.
Yep.
He's as safe as a house.
Safe as a house?
Houses.
Safe as houses?
There we
Speaking of someone who's not safe as houses,
Adem Simpson.
the only reason he wasn't sacked this year was because of his contract.
Exactly.
I think we can all 100% agree on that. West Coast just didn't want to pay him out.
I'm eager to see what you guys think on this because I've got Simo in the if things go poorly camp. Because you can't come out and sack a coach with already very little expectations of what they can actually do for next year after coming out and unequivocally backing him at the end of the season. It would be horrendous leadership, and that's not what the Eagles are known for either. They've stuck by their man the whole way. I'd expect them to do it again, and I expect Simpson will be there in 2025, even if they win the wooden spoon, providing they show something of sort, Jack.
Is that going to be could it be the straw that broke the camel's back, though? 3 straight wooden spoon finishes? Is that enough to get someone sacked? It should be.
Is anyone expecting anything else?
I'm hoping for something else.
I think anything above 16th for West Coast would be a big pass. Or would be a big pass.
Would that count as a big 2024 for Adem Simpson is above 16th?
This is what I was going to say. If things go poorly, how much more poorly can they go?
That's it.
Sorry.
When you say if things go poorly, if the Eagles are 0-17 or something like that, and we are hanging on a win for Adem Simpson, like we are hanging for them to get to North Melbourne and play North whenever they line up in 2024, come the end of the year, then that's if things go poorly for them.
I've got him on needs a big 2024, only because second Don Pike mentioned for the video, I think he's going to be pretty ruthless in charge of that club, and I don't think Adem Simpson will survive another year in the bottom 4, and I don't think he'll want to coach that club beyond 2025, unless Harley Reid looks like the greatest player of all time.
I think that's pretty fair. Honestly, it seems a bit mean, but I honestly hope that Adem Simpson goes. Just because West Coast needs some change. They need a fresh voice. They need something because it's just sad at this point.
Yep, fair enough. I can see it. I can see it either way, but there's no doubt that Simo needs to be 2024.
So we're going with needs to be 2024?
Yes.
Fair enough.
Outvoted again.
All right. Sorry, Smart. We're going to go over to Carlton, and the Carlton man himself, Nic Negrepontis, is going to talk us through Michael Voss, a very interesting case.
He needs a big 2024.
Yes.
I know Carlton just made a prelim, but the way they made the prelim was unprecedented.
I've got Vossi as fully safe.
Fully safe?
Whoa.
And I'll explain it. Is because
He's out of contract.
No one's ever turned a club around. Like I think Voss will be re-signed before the season starts as well. But no one's ever turned, well, no one that I've seen, and I think it's be very hard to think of in historical sense, has turned a club around mid-season like Michael Voss has. So I think even if they finish 3-21 or something like that next year, I think Vossi can go to the board and say, I've done this before, I will do it again. And I think they'd be silly to doubt him as well.
If Carlton goes 3-21, he won't be the only one sacked.
What number would he be to be sacked in the last 10 years for Carlton?
5 or 6.
They can't do it. Vossi cannot get sacked this year.
I really can see a world where Vossi gets sacked this year.
Yeah.
No.
Think back at the halfway point of last season, where everything was going wrong for Carlton. They'd done nothing before they sporadically turned things around, and there were question marks all over Vossi. Are we going to let a 3-month sample completely change the future of the club?
This is the thing. This is Carlton we're talking about. Carlton could be 4-5 at the bye, and fans will be calling for the coach's head. This is how Carlton works. Trust me, I'm well aware. He can't be fully safe. No Carlton coach has ever been fully safe outside of Mick Malthouse in his first year.
I've got a hell of a lot of respect for Brian Cookie in charge of the Blues.
Cat's angle.
Always a cat's angle.
I'm resolute on having Vossi at fully safe.
What have you got him, Jack?
So Smot's got him at fully safe. You've got him at needs a big 2024. I'm going to go split the difference if things go poorly.
Yeah, I think if things go poorly, because that is literally what will happen. If things go poorly, he's in trouble.
Yeah, they could be winning a flag. Who knows? They could also be hilariously bad. It's Carlton. We don't know.
Happy to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to end it off here with Adem Yze, first-year coach at My Tigers. Smot, start us off.
Yeah, so like we were touching on before with Goody, it seems like Yze was Melbourne's game day coach, and to see what he can achieve at the Tigers will be fascinating. I think I've got no reservations on him as a coach. I think everything we've seen so far has been positive. He's a good media performer, and whatever happens in 2024, he'll be there in 2025.
100%. Fully safe. He's a first-year coach, and personally, I'm thrilled to see. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with the Tigers. I've got tremendous respect for him as a coach, considering how involved he was in Melbourne's game day operations. I can't wait to see what he's going to do.
It would have to be like implosion-level scandal for him to not be Richmond coach in 2025.
Yep, fully safe.
Fully safe.
Well, that's our list. We've got them all there. As you would expect, a lot of the coaches in the AFL are fully safe. That's how contracts work. That's how, it's how you'd want your club to be. But before we finish, is there anything here we don't like or any ordering here we would change?
We can move some things around.
Smart, you disagreed on most of them. Is there anything there you don't like?
Someone's got to provide a different narrative. No, I think everything's pretty fair. But I think it's interesting to look at that and say that there's 9 coaches that could move next year without incredible surprise.
Were we stiff on Fagan?
No.
Well, we were really. He's a fantastic coach. No. He's done amazing things for the club, but that doesn't mean that he's not where he is.
The longer I stare at it, the more I think he should be one category above. But if we're happy to leave it, I'm happy to leave it.
I'm happy to leave that. I think that Chris Fagan's right where he deserves to be at the moment after his track record, and that's not a bad thing. His track record. It's also just not as good as it should be.
Pressure is a privilege, they say, and Fags has earned that. So good on him. Now it's time to perform again.
Well, Jack, Seb, thank you for doing our tier list with us. Let's see how the SEN audience likes it, whether they do, whether they don't, whether they hate us, whether they like us. We'll find out, and if you do, we'll make a couple more of these.
Perfect. Can't wait. Thanks for having us, Pont.
Beauty, Pont.